Hi, my name is Helen. I'm 14 years old, and my life is not exactly ordinary. I am a thief, but don't judge me. Listen to my story first. I don't remember my parents at all. For as long as I can remember, I've been raised by my stepfather, who is not a very good person, to be honest. It was he who pushed me down the wrong path and made me a thief. He always said that life had treated him unfairly, and so he would have his revenge and take what was his. He always lived on the move, never staying in one city for long, even though we always had enough money since we could never be caught or tracked down. We still lived modestly. When I turned 14, my stepfather decided to tell me what he had been saving for all this time. It turned out there was some kind of thieves' guild, and he desperately wanted to join it. But to do so, you had to prove what you were capable of. The condition was to pay an entry fee of $1 million. It was an enormous sum, but strangely enough, we already had more than half of it. And so my story begins with us arriving in yet another city where my stepfather announced that we needed to rob a real bank. It was heavily guarded, and if everything was planned carefully, it should work. Before that, however, just to warm up, he wanted me to break into the house of an elderly countess. He had heard she possessed some kind of treasure that she valued greatly. Perhaps if it was a huge diamond, it could be sold, and then there would be no need to rob the bank at all. I wasn't thrilled with the idea. One thing is a bank, which has insurance. If something goes wrong, people won't suffer. Their losses will be compensated. Quite another thing is an old woman who has never harmed anyone. But my stepfather was determined, and I had no choice but to sneak into her mansion at night. At night, I leaped over the tall fence, turned off the alarm, and slipped in through the second floor. It was a very unusual house. It was filled with all sorts of antique objects, genuine knights' armor, pirate chests, though I couldn't check inside them as they had enormous locks. And even an ancient Egyptian sarcophagus. I hoped there was no mummy inside. I certainly wasn't going to check. I was looking for a hiding place that might hold the main treasure, and I found it quickly. I saw a massive safe with a large combination lock. I figured this was the most suitable place to keep the house's most prized valuables. I had already begun thinking about how to crack such a large safe, when suddenly the safe door opened on its own, and I saw a little old lady approaching to me. I have failed for the first time in my life, but the old woman was smiling at me and told me not to worry. She extended her hand and asked me to follow her. I didn't understand a thing. Then she spoke. "I've been waiting for you. Don't be afraid. I won't turn you in. Thieves must stick together and support one another. That is, if we are talking about honorable thieves. You only steal from bad people, those who got rich dishonestly." I was stunned by what I heard and told her that I had no idea whose homes I was robbing, since my stepfather forced me to do that. "There is always a choice. Remember that. You have kind eyes. I can see you have a big heart. I understood that the moment I saw you. I've lived a long and full life, and I didn't acquire all this wealth in an entirely honest way either. But even so, one can remain a decent person if you know who to steal from. You came for the magic, for the main treasure. Here it is. This is for you, my gift." The old woman handed me a small bundle containing some kind of black fabric. "What is this? It's not diamonds or gold. How can fabric be so valuable?" "It's the key to everything. I'm certain you will find a use for it, just as I did in my time." Suddenly, I heard police alarm. "A little trial won't hurt you." With those words, the old woman vanished, like a ghost. What had just happened? And what was I supposed to do? I heard the police already inside the house, about to find me, any second. I ran back looking for a hiding spot. The way out was cut off, and the only way to avoid the police was to hide. I opened the sarcophagus and slipped inside. Thank goodness it was empty with no sign of any mummy. Damn, what do I do? The old woman had been so kind, so why did she call the cops? And what was the black fabric? Eventually, I unwrapped it and saw that it wasn't just a fabric, it was some kind of suit. Strange. What was it for? It was made of a very peculiar material, completely cold to the touch and almost translucent. The Countess had said she'd built her wealth dishonestly. Maybe she had been a thief in her younger days, and this was her suit. I decided I had nothing to lose and put it on, and I was right to do so. At the very moment, one of the officers decided to check whether I was hiding in the sarcophagus and opened it. I thought it was all over. I even raised my hands. But he looked directly at me, and a moment later turned away and walked off. He had looked straight at me and seen nothing. Had I put on an invisibility suit? Overjoyed, I jumped out of the sarcophagus and decided to test how it worked. I accidentally knocked a vase off a side table. Some Chinese piece, probably very, very old. It fell and shattered into tiny fragments. The officer, hearing the noise, came running toward me. He shone his flashlight at me and shouted that I was under arrest. Wait, what? Could you see me? Had the suit broken? At that moment, his flashlight went out and I vanished again. Taking advantage of the darkness, I hid behind the pirate chest. And then it all clicked. The suit didn't make me invisible. It merged with the darkness. I became like a shadow, perfect for a thief. Pressing myself against the wall, I slipped out through a window and climbed up onto the roof of the mansion. The night was overcast, and so I remained a shadow. The Countess had said there is always a choice, which meant I didn't have to obey my stepfather and rob the poor and the innocent. I had to choose my own path. But what would the path be? That was the question.